Hello, I'm Jason Mann with Jim and Nikki Csek, and our guest at the other end of the table is Treena Carson-Piva. She is with Real Property Management, and this is KelownaNow, streaming live from the podcast lounge at KelownaNow on YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. And Nikki, I know you wanted to have Treena in to talk a little bit about business and some of the trends. What's on your mind?
So Treena and I were at a ladies' happy hour event, and we were just talking about business. We get to catch up at events, which is wonderful. And she was talking to me about the transition in business around automate, and the catalyst or the why behind that. And I thought it was a great conversation to talk about in the studio room today.
Certainly with, changes to the available population for hire, those employment trends, quality, numbers of people, all of that, loyalty. Experience, loyalty. A lot of things have changed over the years. And so a lot of businesses looking to, and that's one of the common things you hear from a business. One of the biggest challenges they face right now is people, right? So automation, obviously one of those solutions. I guess we'll talk a little bit about that. Maybe that's where we start.
So helpful, Treena, if you tell us about Real Property Management.
Yeah, so we're a long-term property management company here in Kelowna. We're actually a franchise. There's offices all across Canada and North America, about 350 across North America. But we have the one here in Kelowna, so we service all the Okanagan, specializing in long-term property management. It's a pretty dynamic, exciting industry.
So what does that mean? Long-term property management for the
investor. So we are hired by the investor, the real estate investor, to manage their investment. So everything from tenant relations to maintenance, preventative maintenance, reactive maintenance.
So this is mostly residential then?
All residential property management.
Okay. Yeah. And then mostly long-term rentals?
Some short-term.
Right.
Maybe not very much longer, but bulk of our portfolio is long-term.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you handle everything for them. They basically hand you over the keys and you take care of the property for them.
Yeah. We consider it asset management, not so much property management. We're more than tenants, termites, and toilets.
And where do you
more.
Where do you see the current challenges with you mentioned people and technology and all that stuff? What's the challenges you're facing?
Well, in our industry, it's service related. So we're dealing with the clients, which is the owners. We're dealing with the tenants, which are a very important part of the business. We're dealing with vendors. It's very service driven. Mm-hmm. It's not just collecting rent. That's really a very
very regulated
and all that kind of stuff too, and
very
changeovers,
regulated.
I guess, too. When
move-ins, inspections, preventative maintenance programs, protecting the investment, helping maximize their portfolios and build their wealth. So it's really where we consider ourselves part of their investment specialists.
And where do you see your challenges, and how are you applying technology to meet some of those challenges?
In BC, well, in most provinces, but in BC in particular, it's an extremely regulated industry. So we're governed by the BCFSA. We are required to be working under a brokerage. There's licensing and a lot of rules. A lot of rules to do with how we handle the regulations, but also the residential tenancy branch. And there's stiff penalties for non-compliance. So making sure we do everything right is very, very important for our clients, but also it just elevates the service for our tenants.
What are some of these areas that you could be not compliant in? Like, what are those worst case
for
scenarios?
Instance, when a tenant moves out, you have 15 days from the date they give you a forwarding address to return or reconcile their security deposit. And if you don't, then they can file a claim against you with the Residential Tenancy Act, and you could owe double the amount of even if they actually owe you money, right? Or they've damaged, there's damages. There's certain rules about giving notice. So if you give a tenant notice and you don't follow within the rules, and you've given them notice you've given notice because you want to rent it out as a vacation property, that's not allowed. And if you do that and you get a claim against you, what they will award the tenant is 1 year's worth of rent.
Oh, just a year.
Yeah. So for an investor, you could lose your property.
Yeah.
Right.
That's deep.
So big rules. And those are just a couple of them, but they're very, very, very strict rules. So a lot of what we do, because of the importance of the timeliness and compliance, we need the right people to know, understand the rules, but also to execute them and make sure. And so quality control is really, really important.
So are you doing basic service calls too? When somebody says, "Hey, my stove's not working," do you handle that, all that stuff? Okay, so you're looking after the tenant as well as the client, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So a lot of that
so you have a lot of clients that you look after.
Yeah, individual investors who have, some are accidental landlords. They've inherited grandma's house.
Mm-hmm.
They have a sentimental attachment. They don't want to get rid of it. They see it as a value, an asset. And then we have investors with large portfolios that are just building their portfolio.
So Treena, in a clearly very service orientated sector and industry, how can you identify, or what portion of the work of executing the service can you tag as being able to be automated?
All of it, really. I mean, the process, right? So, and this is my thing is process. I think everything that's done right is done because there's a good process behind it. So the whole property management cycle is very predictable. There's things that happen all the time. So we have processes in place that we have automated to ensure that every step of the way is remembered and handled, right? So we have software that we use that's task management software that really is integrated with all of our software, very smart AI compatibility. And so processes are launched when things happen. So for instance, the tenant submits on their portal, because everything's automated. They've got their little app and they can submit that they're moving out. That launches a process of the moving out process. And so all the steps that are involved with moving out, including all the deadlines, are all automated. So all the forms, all the calendar, everything is pre-populated. It all happens. So there's not a person who's going, here's the checklist of all the things we need to worry about. Because when you have hundreds of properties, hundreds of tenants, there's no way.
Do all of the
remember everything.
Properties that you manage, are they all a part of or sort of available to tenants on a specific app? Is it a specific app? Like, do they make claims or file maintenance requests or pay their rent or all that? It's all through a specific app.
They have an app. Yeah. We have an app that we give all of our tenants. They can submit all of their maintenance requests. They can submit documentation. They can everything that we pay their rent. It's all automated. Utilities. They can go on their tenant portal and see their ledger. They can see all their statements. And then the owners have one too. So we can do the same thing with all of our clients. They've got an owner portal to log into. Very similar to like logging into your bank account, seeing all your statements.
And your occupancy must be pretty high in Kelowna.
Well, yeah. It's an interesting trend right now. I mean, we've got actually quite a bit of vacancies right now in our properties because the market's really changing with price. Prices are coming down despite what some media will tell you that prices are going up.
And there's actually vacancies
too,
because they just enacted some legislation that's supposed to provide vacancy.
And that for sure. There definitely is not the vacancies that we need, but the issue is that also affordability. So there can be vacancies, but no one can afford to rent them.
Right, and that's part of the property taxes and part of the mortgage fees and all that stuff. And I know that a lot of people are saying they just can't. I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, the landlords are just trying to make money," but some of them just can't even make their payments.
A lot of them are choosing to sell right now because they can't.
Which causes the prices to come down, which causes even more problems, right?
Yeah, and a lot of our clients were hearing that. I mean, 4 years ago, being a real estate investor in Kelowna was a very lucrative. We were getting the highest rents in the country. And so people who had bought at a lower price when the prices were good were really, it was cash flow positive, right? Yeah. That's not the way it is anymore. They're not cash flow positive. So it's been a real hard transition for an investor who has never gone through the down slump of the real estate cycle. So it's a lot of, it's a
And
struggle.
that's interesting, Jim, because you always say the solution to high prices is high prices.
Right.
So
But high prices will drive things down because people just can't afford it anymore, so they'll stop buying, right? And then, do you know what I mean? Like, people will stop, and it'll drive prices down, right? Like, if there's substitution available too, like if you think about it in anything, like if you're buying milk and then all of a sudden a different type of milk is available that's cheaper, people will switch to it. If you're in Kelowna and say you're choosing between Kelowna and Calgary, right now a lot of people are probably picking Calgary,
Yeah.
right? Because they can say in Calgary I can have a beautiful home for $500,000. I can have a job that pays likely more than I'm getting in Kelowna. I got to put up a little bit of snow.
We
right?
saw a big exodus here from the Lower Mainland, though, through COVID, when everyone started working remotely, and they were doing that and looking at Kelowna as an option.
Yeah, so
Isn't that
Lower
interesting?
Mainland is way cheaper than.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Kelowna is way cheaper than Lower Mainland.
Oh, yeah.
Then
Yeah.
Calgary is cheaper than that. Edmonton's cheaper. You know what I mean? Like, you can do this.
So
That
we had a
continue-
lot
If you have
of
that
executive-
flexibility. If you have that flexibility.
And there's also a trend right now where people aren't buying homes. Like, the first-time home buyer isn't what it used to be. We
Right.
grew up in a world where
Everybody bought a home.
the first thing you did when you were a grown-up was you bought a house, and your goal was to pay it off and to be have no debt.
Most people can't afford to buy a home.
No one can afford to buy homes.
And that's not
People who make
because,
good money
yeah,
can't
and
buy
it's
homes.
a lot of it has to do with like the amount of regulation and DCCs and property taxes and everything. All
Permitting
those
and
fees. Like,
fees.
if you think about the value, if you look at any object, say this is the cup and this is the property that you're doing, if 60 cents of this is making the cup and the other $5 of it is just moving the cup around on the table, where's the value, right? And I think a lot of that.
But I
Cost
think,
is
though,
not
that
in the
we're
value of the home.
underestimating who the profile of the renter is changing too, though. The renter isn't just somebody who can't buy a home. A lot of them don't want to buy homes. The generation,
That's
this
interesting.
generation, the psychology of the young professionals coming into the market, in our research, what we're seeing is that they don't necessarily want to be homeowners. They don't want to be tied down to a debt. They see that as not freedom. They want cash flow. They want to have access to their money, and they want the flexibility to leave. They want to be able to do what they want to do when they want to do it. So owning a home is a big responsibility.
It's an anchor.
It's an anchor. What if you want to be here for 3 years and then you want to move to
New York
for a couple of years and then you want to go travel Europe, or you have a home. So the psychology of the renter is also changing, and so a lot of renters are executive renters. They have significant incomes. It's not that they can't afford homes. They're just choosing
I've
not
never
to buy.
heard the word executive renter. That's interesting.
It's like an atmospheric river.
Yeah, we love the executive renters. We do, yeah, they're great. I mean, these are people that they take care of the homes. This is who we look for. This is who we want to put in our clients' properties.
Yeah. The notion that you would pay rent, though, and
Not
isn't
have
the
anything
rent
at the end.
roughly like within still striking distance of like the expense that you'd pay in a mortgage if you were set up properly?
Sometimes
I guess,
more.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. But they come out of they have these great jobs.
Do you have stats on that though? Like, is that 10%, 20, 30?
Of the new,
Like that executive renter, what portion of that market would that be?
in Kelowna,
Yeah.
or in like
Or
Canada?
just in general, I guess. Or
Any
in
sense
Kelowna.
of it?
Well, I think it really depends on your portfolio. I mean, our portfolio was a lot of executive properties. So if I'm looking at my stats,
Right,
it might be very different.
They'd be skewed
Right?
that way. Yeah.
So, I mean,
because I know that I talk to a lot of young people too, and they're frustrated that in saying that they don't even have a dream of buying a property because they don't think that they ever will.
down
And I don't think they're
payment.
executive renters. They're just trying to get by, and some of them don't want to live with 5 other people,
Yeah,
right? Just to
for
make
sure.
just to make rent. And I think that's unfair because we grew up with not if you're going to buy a house, it's when you're going to buy a house, and
White
the
picket
houses,
fence.
the homes were within reach, right? And I think it's a supply demand issue more so, and one of the things that I think would be a big part of the solution, instead of what people think push everybody into a city. There's communities, again, I'm going to say the word Greenwood, that you can buy lots in Greenwood for $10,000, $12,000, $20,000. What's a lot in Kelowna? $700,000.
Yeah.
There's Salmo. All these small communities that have lots, and their infrastructure is crumbling because they have no tax base, because they have nobody living in these small towns, and people don't go there because there's not enough stuff there.
Not a grocery store,
if
not a daycare.
But if you encourage people or incentivize people to move to these small communities where there's infrastructure already built, like most of the lots in Green, I speak to Green because I know it quite well, I grew up there. They're serviced, they're ready to go, they're flat, and here,
within driving distance of amenities.
And if you're an architect, a lawyer, an accountant, and stuff like that, where you could work remotely, I don't think those options are being explored. I think if you look at the map of British Columbia, or Canada for that matter, Lower Mainland, mostly condensed down there, and then you have a few pockets throughout BC in this vast country, and there's most of those small towns are basically dying.
Well, the charm of small town living is not what I mean. I came from a small town in Saskatchewan. That was
where you live in Melbourne.
Melfort. Yeah. I mean, it was some of the best years of my life. I loved it. Raising a family in a small town, it was amazing.
That's what I mean. Like a young person could still go to a small community and buy a home and have that.
If your employment will allow you, though. If you work,
not everybody.
Like not everybody can do. I mean,
but if you were
I couldn't do property management in the scale that I'm doing in Melfort, Saskatchewan.
Correct. But if you were incentivizing the people that could go, it would alleviate some of the stresses in the where we're trying to push everybody into large cities and charging people $1,000 and $1,500 a square foot for rent or mortgage.
But it's more than housing; it's also lifestyle. People want to have proximity to culture and sports and
I get that. But there is people that would take that for an incentive, though, right? So young people definitely would want to be here, but I think as people mature, there's like, okay, I can drive in every now and then, I'd be okay with that. And that's what I'm saying. If you take the toothpaste, instead of squeezing it to one end of the tube, and just kind of like see if we can kind of smooth that out, I think that's what we're looking for. We're probably seeing evening out of prices too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not suggesting that all tenants are executive tenants. I know that there's a lot of people who are those 5 people fitting into a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom place just to be able to afford it. Absolutely. I have children who want to buy a home and they don't know how they're going to do that because of the threshold.
And it's very frustrating for them. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's like to have, they don't even have like hope, right? You know what I mean? So
but I'm hired by the investor, so I mean,
you're looking
while
through that lens,
we do, I mean, we do the bigger rent we can get, quite frankly,
for sure,
is going to benefit our clients.
I mean, there's been periods in time where all of this coexists
fairly. Well, and the market won't, if we can't charge these rates, if we're not getting them, but people are paying them, right? Now we're seeing that it's going to change. We are seeing, like I say, we are seeing prices going down right now. Absolutely, because I think it's reached it can't, we knew it was going to happen eventually.
Just like everything, when it overextends and then it should come
Well, and as mortgage renewals come up, people are far more extended than they had anticipated, right?
I know that Nikki and I looked at a property down by the El Dorado there, and the rents in there for 2 and 3 bedroom new apartments that they're building, I think they started at $3,900 and were $4,900 for a 3-bedroom unit. And I said, holy cow, like who's affording that? And they said, well, there's going to have I think I made this joke once already, there's going to be a grocery store here. And I'm just like, well, you won't be able to buy any groceries because you won't have any money left.
Yeah.
But I don't know how people, maybe it's executive people that are, because $4,900 for rent seems like a lot. You have to make a lot of money to cover $4,900 in rent, right? Because that's rent, and that's after tax money, right? So you have to make at least $7,500 a month just to cover rent. Yeah. And then you got to eat and you got to drive a car.
And our threshold, if you like, for us for tenant placement is there's a
like income, household income.
We want their combined household income to be 2.5 to 3 times the rental value. So if it's a $5,000 a month rent, we're looking for 2.5 to 3 times the amount of income.
So imagine that locks out a lot of people, right?
It does, yeah. Now there's a lot of landlords who don't have that threshold.
Right.
We do, because we want to make sure that we have people who can.
So you have filters in place for the properties that you're managing.
So Treena, back to the automation side again. When we look at and I'm probably saying this more for us, the challenges that you face in finding quality team members or experienced staff, and that loyalty factor. So again, you put so much time and energy into coaching and training and teaching to find out that they'll tender their notice in year 1 or year 1.5 and you're back.
Yeah.
Snakes and ladders. So you go back down.
And for a small business, I mean, it costs money, training, plus time, and it's been a struggle for us for sure. And especially when all these compliance is so important, so the details are so important, but also we want to give good service. We don't want, we want to make sure that the people who are picking up the phones is a friendly voice, right? But that's difficult with a small business, being able to afford the quality and being able to retain when there's so many options out there for work. And we put ads out and we get applications, and it's as a business owner, I'm sure you see it too. I mean, it's
and the people that you're looking for to hire, is there a specific training or schooling that they would need to kind of fit the
in part
model?
Like, if you're a property manager, there's some rules that you have to be licensed, so you have to have a property management license, but there's a lot of things that are involved at what we do that doesn't require licensing. So but we brought in the AI part or the automation part because there were so many things that we were finding we were doing, because we have a great team. Like right now we've got a dream team, I would say. I mean, we're just thrilled with the people we have, and we're really super happy, but we want to make sure everyone's in the right seat. So right person, right seat. And so that has involved some shuffling around of roles sometimes, or reassigning roles. So we've got the people we want them to be doing the things that they're best at. But there's a lot of little details that have to be done that are monotonous and like
time-consuming, repetitive,
but so important.
Critically important.
Critical. So those are the things we can automate. Those are the things that we can automate. Reminders. We can automate a lot of banking transactions. We can automate communication and correspondences. We can automate a lot of that part, so that the humans, the people, are giving the service. And so we have an in-house maintenance department. So we have a maintenance manager. We explored having an AI program that when you put in your maintenance request through your app, it actually will solve. It was smart. It would say, what's your issue? My issue is my sink isn't draining fast in my bathroom, and it tells you how to fix it. It goes through like step 1, let's do this, and it was this bot that would,
well, it sounds like calling the telephone company and trying to get answers. And
we found it wasn't working though.
No,
because the service dropped, right? Because we saw our tenants were, who would help? It helped with our international tenants when there was a language barrier.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't, because lots of people get frustrated.
Yeah, they want to talk
because it's like, I'm just like, now I'm 11 layers deep. And I have no idea what's going on.
How do you get back to step 1?
And they're just like, how do I talk to somebody, right? And,
exactly.
And what always surprises me in these billion-dollar corporations is that you can't access, like, ever tried to
find a phone number. Find a phone
Instagram?
number.
Oh, I know.
Or one of the major telecom companies.
Yeah.
Like, try to phone them and try
So
to
it's
get an answer.
It's
right?
that
the irony,
balance.
right? Of phoning trying to phone a phone company,
It's just like,
right?
They're just like,
me crazy.
if you press a number, somebody will call you back next week or something.
I know. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure it's not next week, but it's later.
But we got rid of that through that department because we found that it was affecting our service. So we explored it, and while we certainly had less maintenance requests coming in because we had this, our service was, and we couldn't really control. It was a bot, so we're back to they want to call and talk to Mike, our maintenance manager. So
I think some of the economy airlines are like that too.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They're
Sure.
trying to get an answer.
Oh.
Just like, I think I tried to
Don't
refund one of
even-
Nikki's
don't
tickets
even-
there, and
Yeah.
they canceled
Don't
the flight.
even.
And I think they tried to exhaust you, so you're just like, okay, I don't need it.
you just have to start
You
hashtagging them on
actually
social media. They
Bang
answer
your
you right
head
away.
on the desk.
I think we should actually set up a new experiment. We'll just get like 3 or 4 companies on the phone. We'll dial them all at the same time and see which ones
Who
provided
answers.
the fastest
I love it.
service. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I did listen to a Google call, which was pretty impressive, where the bot AI called and made a hairdressing appointment
Not
with
true.
a live person. Yeah, no, watch it on Google there in their channel.
Wow.
It called and made an appointment. Like it called Marcy and it said, hey, Nikki's looking for an appointment on Wednesday. And Marcy's like looking it up. She's like, oh, there's nothing on Wednesday. Oh, what about Thursday at 3 o'clock? She has availability. And it held the whole conversation all the way through. And it
But what
booked
about
the appointment.
variables? Like
It did it all. It did it
I'm
all.
looking
Like,
that
there was-
up.
You have to watch it. It's so impressive.
You
But
have
but
no
that's-
idea how many
that's a-
appointments I'm
that's a-
booking with this thing.
That's
Right?
a chat GPT model. people throw around the word AI loosely, right? Because there's a difference between automation and AI, right? I mean, AI insinuates learning, right? Like, if you look at
it's integration,
a car company, that its first 11 iterations were about code, right? If you see a stop sign, stop.
Yeah.
If you see a bump in the road, stop. This last iteration is all video based. The computer program watches videos and emulates what regular people do, and it learns from that. So here's the problem they found, though.
What?
Most people roll stop signs. Guess what the car does? Roll stop signs.
Right?
Because it's like everybody rolls stop signs, right?
Interesting.
So it's all video based. And what do we use for ourselves? Most of the time we're using our eyes to guide us through whatever we're doing, right? Like if we're driving, that's really the only sense you're using, right? You're not, I mean, you can hear some things, right? And the car could hear too, but it's not, you're not touching anything or smelling anything. So the car is using video. So it makes sense that iteration would be video-based learning. And there's no code. There's no code that says in there, when you see a stop sign, stop.
Yeah, that's
no
right.
code at all. There's no code. If you see this, stop. It's just all video-based learning. It watches millions of hours of video.
Fascinating. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't.
Scary, and I'm looking forward to
Look how I
traveling.
slid
But I kind of like.
You did. We saw it.
Are there?
We all saw it. Jim.
We
know.
Are there any advancements in your industry that have you in shock and awe, or anything that's on the horizon that you're watching that's?
Well, I think the automation that we have of being able to manage our processes, because there's so many things that we do, it's taking it into a whole new level, right?
Is good to do for people, right? Like like all the forms and everything, because I think that can be a very onerous process for the renter as well. Like when they're trying to, like, how do I give my notice? What do I do? What you know what I mean? Like, how do I?
They love the apps.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that gives them, it's more clarity for sure, and it doesn't need human intervention, right? So
they love it, and they can do it all from their phone.
And I think, and I'll give this plug and I'll put this out there because we'll do a show on it. Are politicians obsolete?
Ooh.
Do you know what I mean? If we could just have an app where we could vote on every issue.
Would you like to weigh in on whether or not politicians may be obsolete?
This is what I worry about with all of this technology, is that we can't let it replace humans.
But wouldn't it be better if everybody had a say in everything? As opposed to...
Well, that's called democracy.
It's called democracy. I know, I get it.
So,
it's awesome, isn't it?
So get out and vote.
But that's
How
what I'm saying.
if we had people who voted?
But
let's talk about that.
But if it was easier to vote,
15,000 people.
If you woke up in the morning and you said, hey, the Parkinson Rec Center is up for thing, here's all the information that you can read about it, and we would like your vote.
Yes. I just think that there's some things that cannot replace.
Sure.
You can't automate compassion or eye contact.
I mean, or how do you control sometimes a government that's kind of out of control? Do you know what I mean? Where they have
want to postpone
I feel like I needed some scotch in my coffee to have this conversation.
I'd love to invite some politically active people in to have a debate, panel-wise, a debate and get feedback in from the community.
I think if a politician is connected to their community, they're talking to constituents,
knocking
know
on
what's
doors.
on people's mind. You're engaged. You have to live in the community. It's going to be, I think, ultimately.
Well, we just had people in here that said that they're not listening to them, right? They're not hearing them, and most people have apathy, right? Because they don't vote, right? Because we see the turnouts here, but because it's inconvenient for a lot of people because they're just like, I'm busy with my life.
Well, to me, it's the issue is the apathy as far as I'm concerned, and that's where AI is going. Everybody is so used to having immediacy to everything they do that taking the time to go stand in line to vote is an inconvenience.
Right. So why not make it convenient?
Or why not change our thinking so that we value?
You think that's possible?
I do.
Really? You think it's possible to change people's apathy towards going out and voting? Because most people don't think that their vote matters. Secondly, they think it's inconvenient, and they're busy buying gas and putting supper on the table and all that kind of stuff. And they don't think they know the issues.
I think a lot of it is a disengagement from community, and this is what technology has done. We know our community is now the world.
But is technology accelerating or decelerating?
I think it's decelerating sense of community.
And I think it's been
community.
But
is technology itself accelerating or decelerating?
I agree too.
Yeah.
It's definitely made us less connected for sure.
To our neighbors.
I think it's been a demise.
But if you have a niche interest or a problem or something that, makes you a little different in life, the internet is also giving you community.
I love when I can't remember the words to a song or the name of the song,
and
I can
right
Google
here.
it, right?
Everything's in there.
Be like, in 3 days, I'm going to remember this.
Well,
2 in the morning.
The point I want to make, though, technology is accelerating at an accelerating pace. Do you know what I mean? It's not AI. What you're seeing is the birth of AI. And just think if AI can iterate itself. Do you know what I mean? Like, instead of us iterating
Scary.
it. Do you know what I mean?
Terrifying.
Like, if you look at a curve, it's up. Like, technology, what we're seeing now in 15 years, you probably couldn't even have thought of.
No, absolutely not.
Right?
But I do think there's a conversation that has to happen around the way elected officials are elected and the length of the term that they are in power, especially when they're not liked anymore by the people that voted for them. So I do think there has to be a change in mechanisms and inputs that are able to dictate the pulse of the people and make change quicker than waiting for
I think a famous person
bloody
once
election.
said, the government should be scared of the people, not people scared of government. That was Ronald Reagan, right? And he was a very well-respected Republican president, liked by both sides. And at this point, I think a lot of people would probably say that they're more scared of the government. Like all of a sudden there's Airbnb legislation, and then different legislations come in that just seem to happen overnight. And there's not a lot of discourse that happens with it.
Well, I think they don't. I don't think they happen overnight. I think there's a lot of things that happen that we don't maybe know.
But I mean, a lot of people that are in the industry. We just had somebody in today that is probably going to lose their business.
So it's like a lack of transparency.
So it means
all of this is happening, but it's not.
It may have happened in the background, but where's her input though?
Well, I don't think it should be a surprise what's happened with the vacation properties. So to be surprised that. If anyone in this industry is saying that they're surprised, I would be surprised that people are saying they're surprised.
Well,
I'm surprised.
Really?
I'm surprised
and
as well.
we have Airbnbs. And it's not that I'm oblivious to the changes that were happening. I just didn't think that, and I still
they were severe,
don't think
for sure. I don't think we predicted it.
No,
to be
we went
as
from 0 to
hard.
60 in 3 seconds.
We've seen overreach in the past 3 years, like on a scale we've never seen before.
Yeah, I mean,
how do we go from automation to overreach? Anyway, Treena,
because I think there's a lot of it. That's the problem, and it's affecting a lot of things. In
I mean, this young lady that was just in here, she worked hard to build her business, and she thinks it's going to be destroyed.
And she's played within the
work hard for your
rules
business.
and the laws.
Yeah.
Same for us. Bill C-18 is killing us.
Absolutely.
Bill C-18 for us as a small independent media outlet is like somebody has their knee on our throat.
It's not killing us. It's not enjoyable.
Here's the
I
thing.
don't like it.
We've got Twitter, TikTok, still YouTube, these great channels, but as their revenues go up higher and higher and they meet that threshold, they could be taken away at any time. Next one up is Bing, apparently, as far as like...
Right. But for us, we don't get funding from the government.
Yeah.
We didn't ask. We willingly put our stuff on Facebook. We put it there, as every media outlet does. They put their stuff there. CBC even puts their stuff there. And to ask them for money at this point, I mean,
we never asked.
There. We never asked for money, right? So it's kind of unfair to all of a sudden introduce legislation that really impairs our ability to compete.
But I think with vacation properties, though, the reason why they did this was because they see it as a solution to a problem that wasn't. And really,
I'm going to bring you back on the show in pick a time that we are able to determine whether this legislation to Airbnb had any impact on the affordability of rental or home ownership. And I'm going to venture to say no, nothing significant. So I'll be interested in, and I'm super excited because I love you and I love the industry that you work in. And
why not say that the maximum you can charge for rent is $2,000, right? Do you know what I mean? Then you have rent-controlled properties. That will now affect your business, right? And then you probably say, hey, wait a second, right? Because that's where we're going. Because I would say, why stop at Airbnb? Just rent control everything, right? Well, they did that with the speculation tax.
Do I have to renew my passport? Is there? How do I get on Mars?
Maximize the amount of rent you can charge.
No.
Why not?
I think we should do that.
We're wrapping it up.
We're getting this. We're getting the
getting the hook.
Yeah.
I think we burned out the
Treena,
batteries on
thank
the
you so
camera
much
today.
for coming in. I'm super excited that you've adopted automation and that it's having a positive impact on your business. And I can't wait to see some of the changes that are happening.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
You're gonna have to wrap the show. You're on mic.
Oh,